Palestine Jews Hitler.
This article is about the state-supported destruction of European Jews during the Second Great War. For all people groups abused during this period, see Holocaust casualties. The Holocaust was the decimation of European Jews during the Second Great War, somewhere in the range of 1941 and 1945. Nazi Germany and its teammates methodically killed nearly 6 million Jews across German-involved Europe, around 66% of Europe's Jewish populace. The killings were brought out basically through mass shootings and toxic substance gas in annihilation camps, essentially Auschwitz-Birkenau, Treblinka, Belzec, Sobibor, and Chemno in Kupid, Poland. The Nazis fostered their philosophy in view of bigotry and quest for living space and held onto power in mid-1933. While trying to drive all German Jews to emigrate, the system passed enemy of Jewish regulations and organized a cross-country slaughter in November 1938. After Germany attacked Poland in September 1939, occupation specialists started to lay out ghettos to isolate Jews. Following the attack of the Soviet Association in June 1941, around 1.5 to 2 million Jews were shot by German powers and neighborhood colleagues. Later in 1941 or mid-1942, the most elevated levels of the German government chose to kill all Jews all through Europe. Casualties were expelled by rail to eradication camps where, assuming they endured the excursion, most were killed with poison gas. Different Jews kept on being utilized in constrained work camps where numerous passed on from starvation, misuse or exhaustion, or utilized as guinea pigs in dangerous clinical experiments. Albeit numerous Jews attempted to evade, getting through sequestered from everything was extremely challenging because of variables, for example, the absence of cash to pay partners and the gamble of impugning the property, homes, and occupations having a place with killed Jews were reallocated to the German occupiers and other non-Jews. Albeit most of Holocaust casualties kicked the bucket in 1942, the killing went on at a lower rate. Billions of dollars in restitutions have been paid, albeit missing the mark regarding the Jews' misfortunes. The Holocaust has additionally been honored in historical centers, dedications, and culture. It has become vital to Western verifiable cognizance as an image of a definitive human fiendishness. The term Holocaust, got from a Greek word signifying consumed offering, for has turned into the most widely recognized word used to portray the Nazi eradication of Jews in English and numerous other languages. The term Holocaust is some of the time used to allude to different gatherings that the Nazis targeted, particularly those designated on a natural premise, specifically the Roma and Sinti, as well as Soviet detainees of war and clean and Soviet civilians. These gatherings, nonetheless, were focused on for various reasons. By the 1970s, the descriptor Jewish was dropped as excess in Holocaust, presently promoted, turned into the default term for the obliteration of European Jews. The Jewish word Shoah, devastating obliteration, solely alludes to Jewish victims. The culprits utilized the expression last arrangement to depict their activities towards Jews have resided in Europe for multiple thousand years. All through the medieval times in Europe, Jews were exposed to discrimination against Jews in light of Christian philosophy, which faulted them for killing Jesus. In the 19th century, numerous European nations conceded full citizenship privileges to Jews with the expectation that they would assimilate. By the mid-20th years, most Jews in Focal and Western Europe were very much coordinated into society, while in Eastern Europe, where liberation had shown up later, numerous Jews actually resided in unassuming communities, spoke Yiddish, and rehearsed universal Judaism. Political discrimination against Jews, placing the presence of a Jewish inquiry and normally a worldwide Jewish scheme, rose in the 18th and 19th years because of the ascent of patriotism in Europe and industrialization that expanded monetary contentions among Jews and non-Jews. A few researchers started to classify people into various races and contended that there was a desperate battle between them. Numerous bigots contended that Jews were a different racial gathering outsider to Europe. The Nazi Party was established directly following the war, and its philosophy is much of the time referred to as the principal factor making sense of the Holocaust. All along, The Nazis, similar to other country-states in Europe, longed for a world without Jews, whom they distinguished as the epitome of all that was the matter. With modernity, the Nazis characterized the German country as a racial local area unbounded by Germany's physical borders and tried to cleanse it of racially unfamiliar and socially lacking elements. The Nazi Party and its chief, Adolf Hitler, were likewise fixated on switching Germany's regional misfortunes and getting extra Lebensraum living space in Eastern Europe for colonization. These thoughts engaged numerous Germans. The Nazis vowed to shield European progress from the Soviet threat. Hitler accepted that Jews controlled the Soviet Association, as well as the Western powers, and were plotting to obliterate Germany. Persecution of Jews. The about 500,000 German Jews made up under 1% of the country's populace in 1933. They were more well off on normal than different Germans and to a great extent acclimatized, albeit a minority were late workers from Eastern Europe. Different German government organizations, Nazi party associations, and neighborhood specialists founded around 1,500 enemy of Jewish laws. In 1933, Jews were prohibited or limited from a few callings and the common service. 54. In the wake of bothering the German Jews out of open life toward the finish of 1934, the system passed the Nuremberg Regulations in 1935. The regulations saved full citizenship privileges for those of German or related blood, confined Jews' financial movement, and condemned new relationships and sexual connections among Jews and non-Jewish Germans. Jews were characterized as those with 3 or 4 Jewish grandparents. Large numbers of those with fractional Jewish plunge were delegated Mischlinge, with shifting rights. The system likewise tried to isolate Jews with a view to their definitive vanishing from the country. Jewish understudies were progressively constrained out of the educational system. A few regions established limitations overseeing where Jews were permitted to reside or lead business. In 1938 and 1939, Jews were banned from extra occupations, and their organizations were confiscated to drive them out of the hostile to Jewish viciousness, generally privately coordinated by individuals from Nazi Party foundations, took principally non-deadly structures from 1933 to 1939. Jewish stores, particularly in provincial regions, were frequently boycotted or vandalized because of neighborhood and famous tension. Numerous humble communities turned out to be completely liberated from Jews, and upwards of 33% of Jewish organizations might have been compelled to close. Against Jewish brutality was much more terrible in regions attached by Nazi Germany. On 9-10 November 1938, the Nazis coordinated Kristallnacht, evening of broken glass, a cross-country massacre. North of 7,500 Jewish shops out of 9,000 were plundered. In excess of 1,000 places of worship were harmed or destroyed. 68, something like 90 Jews were murdered. 69, and upwards of 30,000 Jewish men were arrested, albeit many were delivered in no time. The strategy of constrained migration went on into 1940. Other than Germany, a critical number of other European nations deserted vote-based system for some sort of dictator or extremist rule. Numerous nations, including Bulgaria, Hungary, Poland, Romania, those individuals from the clean intellectuals not killed in that frame of mind, around 400,000 posts were ousted from the Wartheland in western Poland to the overall governorate occupation zone from 1939 to 1941, and the region was resettled by ethnic Germans from Eastern Europe. The remainder of Poland was involved by the Soviet Association, which attacked Poland from the east on 17 September, compliant with the German-Soviet Pact. 92. The Soviet Association extradited a huge number of clean residents to the Soviet inside, including upwards of 260,000 Jews who to a great extent endured the war. Albeit most Jews were not socialists, a few acknowledged positions in the Soviet organization, adding to a prior discernment among numerous non-Jews that Soviet rule was a Jewish conspiracy. In 1940, Germany attacked quite a bit of Western Europe, including the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, France, and Denmark and Norway. 84 in 1941, Germany attacked Yugoslavia and Greece. A portion of these new property were completely or to some degree added into Germany, while others were put under regular citizen or military rule. The conflict gave cover to the homicide of around 70,000 systematized Germans with mental or actual handicaps at particular killing habitats utilizing poison gas. The casualties incorporated each of the 4,000 to 5,000 standardized Jews. Regardless of endeavors to keep up with mystery, information on the killings spilled out, and Hitler requested an end to the Unified Eliminating Program in August 1941, decentralized killings through disavowal of clinical consideration, starvation, and harming caused 120,000 extra passings toward the finish of the war. Large numbers of similar staff and innovations were subsequently utilized for the mass homicide of Jews. Germany dealt with 1.7 million Jews in Poland. The Nazis attempted to amass Jews in the Lublin locale of the overall governorate. 45,000 Jews were ousted by November and left to fight for themselves, causing numerous deaths. 106 extraditions halted in mid-1940 because of the resistance of Hans Candid, the head of the overall governorate, who didn't believe his fiefdom should turn into an unloading ground for undesirable Jews. After the success of France, the Nazis considered expelling Jews to French Madagascar, yet this demonstrated impossible. The Nazis arranged that unforgiving circumstances here would kill numerous Jews. During the attack, gathering places were scorched and large number of Jews escaped or were removed into the Soviet occupation zone. Different enemy of Jewish guidelines were before long given. In October 1939, grown-up Jews in the overall governorate were expected to perform constrained labor. In November 1939, they were requested to wear white armbands. Regulations proclaimed the capture of most Jewish property and the takeover of Jewish-possessed organizations. At the point when Jews were constrained into ghettos, they lost their homes and possessions.